didn't like the games, but we needed them. And some people do love these games, and some people play them to death and are just not playing them anymore because they played them to death. There is a scene of Conan Exiles people who played the game for 5 to 10 to 20,000 hours who are now just so sick of the game that they can't play it anymore. That's common in survival. And so that's another reason why the reception might not be so good for Conan Exiles anymore, because the big community that played the game, I guarantee, are burnt out at this point the way that Rust players are burnt out. You know, people are burnt out on these games now when they played them for thousands and thousands of hours. Happens in DayZ, happens in Rust, happens in Conan Exiles. All the good survival games, you clock up thousands of hours right quick, and you get real bored real fast. Especially if the game's inferior, like Sons of the Forest or Conan Exiles. And Conan Exiles is inferior. Don't get it twisted. It got good ratings because it ticks off all of the critic boxes, but it does have issues. It absolutely does have issues. You know. So just, don't think it's a perfect game just because it ticks all the boxes. It's got issues. Now, when we look at the Metacritic, I'm going to make a guess at what I'm going to see. I'm going to see a 6.7 user and a 7.2 meta. And let's go look at what is this? Conan Exiles PC Metacritic. And that's my guess, and I think that you're going to see the same old C+ rating that good games get. And so I would say it's a good game because it ticks the boxes. Look, I was off. So yeah, the users are a little bit more angry than I thought they were. I put them at I think I said 6.3, and I put meta at a 71. I was off. The community liked this game less than I thought they did. Conan Exiles is one of the most disappointing games I played this generation, and I would say that's a very good sentence to describe the game. It makes so many promises that it does deliver on, but it does ultimately disappoint because it is kind of hollow and vacuous in its conception and its execution. It doesn't have that I can live in this world feel that even Immortal does. It doesn't have that. It doesn't have the immersion. It's too slow for what it supplies you in return. There's not enough, oh my god, this was so awesome moments like Rust. Rust has so many, oh my god, this was the greatest experience I've ever had in a game before moments. I've never met a Rust player that ever would say differently. This game did not do that. There was almost no moments in this game like that. Almost all of it is derivative in this game. So that's another part of it. Ultimately, Conan, the lead review for negative was ultimately Conan Exiles is a slow-paced game with no quick payoffs, which has really harmed it. It provides a sense of wonder with its locations, and I do agree, and the things that populate them. There's a lot of stuff in the game content-wise, I would say. But it is not a fun game, per se. And so that thing, they don't know how to say that, but I do. I don't think it's a very fun game. It's not fun to play like Elden Ring or Dark Souls 1 or Bloodborne, or even New World. It's more kind of like a chore to play, a little bit more like the bad sides of DayZ. DayZ's got good sides where you come up on loot and you have the time of your fucking life, just like Rust. But it's got its bad sides where it's a grind and you have bad RNG, you're not finding what you're looking for and all that. Age of Conan is even slower than that because it has like a very New World approach to its loot system where you have way too much loot for what it is you're actually doing, and the eye level on the gear I don't think went over well with the community. It's a very gear based game, but it's not worth sitting around long enough to get good gear in. So it suffered from that. It suffered from longevity. The gear was too slow of a grind that not a lot of people cotton to, I don't think. And so yeah, there's danger in the persistent online world, which adds to the need to log on often to keep an eye on things. If you are not prepared to put the hours in, this is a title that is better left alone. and it lost points because of this. They're like, why do I spend 1,000 hours playing this game when there's not even really very fun raids or anything going on like Rust? Like, you can play 1,000 hours of Rust, and by that time, whether you like it or not, you're gonna witness like 50 to 100 raids. I don't care what server you play. I mean, maybe not the zombie server because it's got 3 pop on it, but any server with more than 20 or 30 pop on it, you will see between 50 and 100 raids in your first year where you clock about 1,000 hours. It will just happen. You can't stop it. It's going to force you to understand what it's like to have enemies at your gates that you can't stop. What's that game we heard about today? Enemies at the doorstep or whatever. Bad enemies at the doorstep or whatever the name of that free game was. That's how Rust Extraction actually is. You can't stop people from killing you when you're offline. You can't stop them from raiding you. So Conan had these things, but they weren't compelling. They weren't fun, and the clan system wasn't rewarding enough to force people to want to play with each other, I don't think. And so this was disappointing because you can get these experiences out of Conan if you want them, but you're going to find them much easier in Rust. You're going to find them whether you like it or not in Rust your first day without hunting for it. In Conan, you had to hunt for it, and you've got to build a community to get the content that it just happens naturally in Rust. And it's sad that you have to build the community to get the content in Conan Exiles, which is that thing about be prepared to put the hours in, make a commitment to a clan, and actually go do things. If you're not willing to do that, this title is better off left alone. And he was blunt about it, and I think he should have been. This guy gets paid to do this, so he warned his constituency in the way that he needed to, which is, this is a title that's better off left alone unless you get it on a fucking Steam sale for $10 and you cotton to the custom mode aspects of it, because the online aspects of it have died. And so that's my rating, right? About the same as where they fell. 68. 68. It's a C- game. Falls right as C. To me, C- is 67 to like 71. And then you got a C. If you're sitting 71 to 76, you've got a C. If you're sitting 76 to 81, you've got like a B-. If you're 81 to 86, you've got a B. And if you're 86 to 100, you've got some form of an A, be it minus or, you know, whatever. And so I think this game fell right at a C-. And this is the difficulty I have with rating modern games when people ask me, is I've got to give this whole spiel that's like an hour long to make it feel like I'm giving an honest critique that isn't too negative. And I have to supply all the reasons, which is difficult for me. And I try to be honest about it, because I think a lot of this isn't honest. I think the honesty here is this 5.3. Honestly, that's what I would have said the game was up until a few days ago when I got it for $10. I would have said it was a 5.3. Now I fall where the critics fall, which is a 68, because the custom mode in fucking Conan Exiles is fucking amazing, like Minecraft or Fallout 76 custom mode. And people want to pretend this 76 doesn't have a custom mode and that it's not a good game and that it doesn't have thousands and thousands and thousands of non-repetitive content, hours of content in it. And when the Fallout 76, because it had a bad launch, is still somehow a bad game. But it's not. It's not a bad game. It's got so much goddamn content in it without ever having to do quests at all that it's like, you know, it knocks Conan Exiles out of the water as a single player experience. So I'm a snob when it comes to custom, because I've had that in 76 for years, and I didn't know Conan Exiles had it. I frankly didn't. I went and joined online servers when I first played Conan Exiles, where I think that I got my $10 worth was not the game, not the online servers or the experience itself, because it's not that good. It was that custom mode. That custom mode is absolutely worth $10, and I'll tell you why, right? I'll make the argument like the way that Maddie Ross would make it in that movie True Grit, when she's wagering with the tradesman, right? Are we bartering again? Yeah, we're bartering with Conan Exiles again. We're bartering for Conan Exiles' soul. So here it goes. You want to know what makes Conan Exiles a really good 68? if the grid were to go down and the internet were to go down, Conan Exiles is a top 5 game. Top 5. And the love and support and beautiful dedication that Funcom put into it. When you take the internet away, the internet coddles people. WoW coddles people. It makes them feel like their experience is always going to be a multi-party one full of people walking around that actually look like humans when they move and all this shit. It coddles you into believing that your life's always going to be like that. But if the internet were to ever be cut off, suddenly Conan Exiles goes from one of the worst games ever made to one of the best games ever made. And so that custom mode is worthless to me right now. But if suddenly the internet were to go down and I was living in this house with nothing but solar, Conan Exiles suddenly becomes one of my favorite games of all time. Because I can play it forever and I can tweak the custom mode however I want to supply this endless experience from bullshit 75 hits to kill a mob to 1 hit to kill a mob and everything in between. And I can get an action RPG. I can get a slow paced survival extraction game. I can get a fucking Bloodborne if I want. I can get a fucking Fortnite if I want. And like, and all the systems in between. That's why Conan Exiles was a really, really good purchase for $10. But I believe that sale might even be over. Let's go visit the store page because I think that sale's over now. And yeah, they want $40 for the game again. Absolutely the fuck not. Do not spend $40 on this game ever. They've been giving it away for free on Sony and Xbox. Do not buy this game for $40. That is a terrible amount of money to spend on this crappy game. I would never spend more than $10 on this game ever, whether it was new or not. So just understand that. Now this is a cool package. For $115, you actually kind of get a lot. The complete Conan bundle. There's a lot of content here that is absolutely worth $115. If nothing else, you can jack off to the beautiful naked women while they piss. Literally. If you want. In all of these titles. Like, as far as freedom goes, Funcom is pretty much the epitome of freedom. I can't think of a more free game. Maybe Scum, I guess. So, you know, that's where we're at with that. Scum, you know, Baldur's Gate 3, it's a freedom game. So it does sell that. From a porn perspective, from a sex perspective, this content right here, this packet right here is more porn than you can shake a stick at. It's more naked women that you could ever possibly want or need. And so as far as that side of gaming is, Conan and Funcom tick that box in spades. They have like the best naked games ever made. You can piss and shit in them, as I recall. It's just disgusting. And you know, and it leads to really interesting RP that is a side of gaming that is often neglected and spoken about like it's some kind of shadow syndicate. But there's a huge sexual RP community in gaming that comprises hundreds of millions of people that are totally ignored, like they are not even there, that are sitting in the background making Baldur's Gate 3 the greatest game of all time when it's not. And when it comes to that, Conan Exiles was absolutely worth the $10. You can play with the nude simulator aspect of Conan Exiles for several days, and you could probably entertain your girlfriend doing it. It's that interesting. So you really could. You could probably entertain a normie girlfriend with Conan Exiles. It's got that freedom. You absolutely could. You could probably RP a sex couple with your girlfriend in Conan Exiles, and I could see them digging it. It's got that freedom. So, you know, I speak well of it, and so does everybody else because of that. Is it a fun game? No. That's all I have to say about this. We did everything I wanted to talk about. Unfortunately. Combat's not good. Compelling gameplay loops aren't there. It's a long, taxingly long game that does not, check the boxes when it comes to the fun. It checks the boxes that the critics like. And so it got a good rating, but it shouldn't have. It sits there at a 53 user. That's about right. It's like a 53 game. That's a really low rating, by the way. People forget, but they can rate between 0 and 100 on user, right? Like that, like what we just looked at. They can it's 100. I mean it reads like 5.3, but what it really is 0 through 9. Well, really 100. It's a 0 through 100. There's really no difference, right? There's a decimal point on this number, so you could call it 5.3 out of 10, but what you're really seeing here is a 53. So the user score is brutally honest. This game is like half good. It's like half good. It got a loyal, honest 53, and trust me, the people are more inclined to give it a good rating because it ticks all those freedom boxes more than most games do. But even on the console, most times you can't get nudity on the console at all. But, I mean, Conan Exiles, you could. So, I don't know. It earns some more points with me because of that. I think it sits 68 for me. But I want to bump it to a generous 72. Not because I'm an over, qualifier or whatever, or that I tend to err on the side of kindness when it comes to ratings, but because I think it does earn another 4 points because it caters to an adult community, and most games just plain don't do that. And so it gets a few more points out of nowhere that it wouldn't normally get because most games will not give you freedom. Freedom is the opposite of most games. This game is not guilty of that. So, yeah, and that's all I have to say about this. Is Conan Exiles bad? Let's go Google that. I can't tell. So let's see. Right? Let's see what YouTube says about this. I don't hate Conan Exiles, but let's hear what a community member says, okay? Wait, why does that sound like me? Okay. Fucking mage.
Get over it, they are doing great and it's much better than it was before they started to actively work on the game again. Be grateful and just be patient. Quit whining or stop playing.
I don't want to do this video. It has that Reddit style that I cannot fucking stand. Born loser incel speak. Sorry. I almost gave him the thumbs up too. Worst survival game ever. This guy got some hits with this. 28,000. I think he's probably a good source, so let's go see.
1988. It's Friday night and the year is 1988. It's Friday night and you're on your way to Blockbuster to pick up a couple of movies for the weekend. Browsing your way through those neatly categorized shelves.
Mullet. Is it a woman or a man?
VHS boxes.
It's a woman.
It doesn't take you long
before you
see it.
I mean, back then the mullets were so strong you couldn't tell sometimes.
There it is. Staring you in the
I think it was a woman.
Face, the gladiator that is Arnold Schwarzenegger holding his sword aloft as though he were challenging the gods themselves. With a title like Conan the Barbarian.
Dude looks like a lady. Dana. Anti-trans Aerosmith song.
You know it, you're transported into a world of savagery, warlords, and most importantly, Arnold Schwarzenegger with a massive sword. Watching his chiseled abs and mighty arms, you wanted nothing more than to join him in Iberia to fight for glory, but alas.
Yep, and also, Robert E. Howard is technically the most prolific author who ever lived. And that's the guy who made Conan Exiles, Crawl the Conqueror. What else? I mean, Robert E. Howard, what else did he do? It was a lot. I mean, he was a really big guy. He wrote a lot of superhero. He was like the original superhero guy. He made his favorite His favorite character. I'm sorry. He had a very famous set of characters, and I forget all of them. But he had done Conan. He did Cowboys. He did. I think he did Mariners. Like he did prototypes and archetypes. And he did archetypes, and he did a werewolf story that was very famous. He did sword and sorcery. He pretty much invented sword and board sorcery. He did comedy. He was he pretty much created Weird Tales, and without Weird Tales magazine, we wouldn't have sci-fi. He pretty much like single-handedly molded Edgar Allan Poe and H.P. Lovecraft, and without him, we wouldn't have had H.P. Lovecraft. We wouldn't have like monster horror. Like this guy was the most prolific author of all time. He wrote a bunch of stuff in the Arabian Nights set of stories. He did swashbuckling. He did Solomon Kane. He did Sailor Steve Costigan is a very famous one. He just kept going. He did Conan, he did Asia, he did the Renaissance. I mean, he was like the most prolific writer that ever did live. It's weird because he was like a weird sci-fi fantasy author, but he wrote basically every hero archetype that I can think of. Without him, we wouldn't have had LOTR. And just understand. So this thing he's talking about, this Conan worship, it's big in the nerd scenes. The real nerds know who Robert E. Howard is, or they should. Because without Robert E. Howard, we never would have had Aliens. We never would have had like Cary Grant or Errol Flynn. We never would have had Conan. We never would have had Master and Commander or any of the good Mariner tales. Like the man like pretty much invented modern popular pulp fiction. All the stuff that we really love. And so if you don't know your Robert E. Howard, you don't need to read Robert E. Howard, though he is a good read. Really good pulpy read, like a good enough to be in magazines pulpy read, but like lots of sex, lots of rape, not like a supporting it, but just he was not a censorship guy. There was all kinds of themes of piss and rape and murder and like terrible politics and slavery and thraldom and taking thralls and gods that came down to earth and rape to murder people and all this. He was not a constrained writer in any way or form, and he didn't do these things because he was a pederast or a weirdo like Elrond was. He was covering these things because he was Lovecraftian in his execution. He was trying to form entire worlds like Lord of the Rings. So he was covering the bases, and rape did happen in his worlds. Everything happened in his worlds. So know your Robert E. Howard. You don't have to read him, but you should know him. And any good nerd worth their salt knows that all their heroes come from Robert E. Howard, the guy who made Conan. And that's good. And a good Conan reviewer is going to start exactly how this one started. Because one must mention the cult status fervor that Conan has when you look at Conan Exiles. Because Conan had a fervor that went back to... Conan has had a fervor since, I want to say, World War I. Conan's been around since World War I. Conan the Barbarian was originally written for Weird Tales magazine in 1916, I think. But let's go look. It was written in... There, Conan, the other disambiguation, right? 1932. I was close. I was 20 years off, but it was World War II. Excuse me, it was World War II. Conan has had a Marvel-like fandom that extends further than Superman or even Spider-Man. since 1932 because he was big in the literary world the way that Harry Potter is big in the literary world. This is the original Harry Potter, Conan the Destroyer. So nobody knew, nobody had ever done Harry Potter until Robert E. Howard did it first in Weird Tales magazine. People didn't know it was possible, really. And so, know your Robert E. Howard and know that for exactly about 100 years almost, 90 years, Conan has been religiously followed and spawned cults and religions and television shows and movies and comic books and fan fiction. It's up there with Star Wars. And if you're not aware of it, be aware of it. Those films did not do justice to really how big Conan actually is. It's like a really, really big fictional work up there with The Lord of the Rings. Very big one. So once you understand that, you begin to realize how really important Robert E. Howard was and how important Conan is. Now, Funcom could not have made Conan Exiles a bad game, yet they did. They committed a cardinal sin. And so the Conan community will not forgive them for this. Now you're going to hear a nerd suss out directly, a D&D nerd probably, suss out directly what his issues with the world-breaking elements of Conan Exiles were when it comes to how badly they were in comparison to how religiously real Conan always was in all of its depictions in every aspect, except for the wishy-washy sequels that Hollywood did. But even the original Conan had no restrictions at all. Even the rape was there, I think. So, understand. If you talk about Conan, you must understand that the fervor about Conan is not only greater than Superman or Spider-Man, it is older than Superman and Spider-Man.
And had to remain firmly locked away in your imagination.
He made Superman and Spider-Man. Without Conan the Destroyer or the Cowboy or the Mariner and all the things that he wrote, all the archetypes he wrote, we never ever would have had a Spider-Man or I mean, this is the original Stan Lee. They want to give Stan Lee the credit. Robert E. Howard is the real Stan Lee. And that's the statement I was trying to reach. Robert E. Howard is the source material, like Tolkien was the source material.
35 years later,
for all comic books, all fantasy, all sci-fi.
2017.
Well, not sci-fi. That would have been like Asimov and a few other key writers, Arthur C. Clarke. But I mean, he was just as prevalent and just as relevant in sci-fi as he was any other genre. He was like a super author, like Stephen King, in the respect that he could easily dabble in any genre, exactly like any other super author, like J.K. Rowling. Like lately, I've been looking at. I watched the first season of CB Strike, which I don't know if you guys seen this or not, but HBO Max has a show called CB Strike. Fucking chef kiss. Best TV show in the last 8 years or something, short of maybe the first few episodes of first few seasons of Yellowstone or something like that. And guess what? Written by Robert Galbraith, who is J.K. Rowling. And CB Strike is the #1 television series on BBC right now. 3 or 4 seasons deep. I have them. I own them. My mother owns them. And this show is one of the most intellectual and deep dive like Mind Hunter shows I've ever seen. Far better than Mind Hunter, and definitely on that execution too. And it's extremely well written because it's J.K. Rowling at her best, and it's super fucking good. And this show will be an archetype for detective series to come for hundreds of years. Cormoran Strike will be the Dashiell Hammett of detective series for probably 100 years. So don't miss out on Cormoran Strike. He's the modern Sherlock. He's autistic to the nth degree, worse than Sherlock. That the original, not the original, but that remake of Sherlock that BBC did. Cormoran's like the Cormoran strike is real, like not the Sherlock tongue-in-cheek kind of schlocky Asperger's on the spectrum. Cormoran strike is the real Asperger's. The man's a lot like me in many ways. Totally moody, violent, has crippling injuries. He has really wonderful women around him, but he's a very single man. And he's universally loved by everybody in the community, but he has the most problems in the community. And if you want a modern hero despot, not a despot, excuse me, a modern anti-hero protagonist, Cormoran Strike is the best we've got on any media right now. And without Robert E. Howard, we wouldn't have had Cormoran Strike. Robert E. Howard wrote the original detective novels that became the source code for or source material for movies like The Maltese Falcon, or anything film noir like Chinatown. Without Robert E. Howard, we wouldn't have had Chinatown. So understand, know your Robert E. Howard. If you like all this stuff, but you don't know the source material, you will not do well. Nerds will slaughter you in trivia your whole life and make fun of you for the things that you don't know. These things are important.
Funcom turned your fantasy of being a barbarian.
And without Robert E. Howard, J.K. Rowling would have been nothing. She never would have been able to do Harry Potter without two authors. She never would have been able to do Harry Potter without Robert E. Howard or Marion Zimmer Bradley, the woman who wrote The Mists of Avalon. Without The Mists of Avalon, we wouldn't have had any of the modern Camelot stuff. It's basically Camelot fan fiction, but it's good Camelot fan fiction. Really well written. I'm talking classic literature, well written Camelot fan fiction. But The Mists of Avalon was like the most formative sword and board sorcery Arthur legend, mainly had a lot to do with Merlin, right? A lot of the Merlin legend is like where most of the Merlin source code stuff came from, right? Without Robert E. Howard, we never would have had Marion Zimmer Bradley, who wrote The Mists of Avalon. Without The Mists of Avalon, we never would have had J.K. Rowling. Without J.K. Rowling, we never would have had Cormoran Strike. Without Robert E. Howard, we never would have had Cormoran Strike, which is like Robert E. Howard's detective character. Without Sherlock Holmes and Robert E. Howard's detective character, we never would have had modern Law and Orders or any of that stuff, or any of the detective stuff that we all know and love. Like Sherlock is, in a way, an older premise because it was written before Robert E. Howard was even born. But the archetype that Sherlock was perfected by Robert E. Howard. It was not perfected it was perfected by Arthur Conan Doyle, but it was not perfect. I was actually a lit major. I'm not kidding. I could talk about that. I could teach classes about modern contemporary American literature. Well, not just American, but British, and really just modern contemporary literature of any country. And so, I was raised on this stuff. I was expected to know it. And I wrote my thesis and statements and all this in my treatise on it. And I know this stuff. And so without the archetype characters like Conan, we never, ever would have had World of Warcraft even. So it's important. So when he mentions the 80s vibe about Conan, he's serious in a way that a lot of nerds might not be really understand. They think it's some kind of cult, underground, cult status, sort of like obscure nerd talking about something that he loves. But no, hundreds of millions of people worship Conan the way that hundreds of millions of people worship Lord of the Rings. So when he talks about the fan fervor that Conan garnered even in the 80s, he's not joking. It must be brought up first and foremost when you do a video about it.
Exile a survival game set against the vast and brutal universe of Robert E. Howard's
And it looks so good, doesn't it? Look at it.
The Barbarian. Hello everyone, my name is Dumbways to Kai, and welcome back to another installment of the Worst Survival Game Ever series.
Bad
series
name.
Where I'm going to do my absolute best to play every survival game ever in the hopes of finding the worst one. However, unlike my previous videos, I actually enjoyed this one. I have never played Conan before, nor had I personally heard much about it either. But after
Yeah, I enjoyed this game.
play it
Yeah,
by
great.
Josh Drive Hayes, I just had to give it a go. I mean, you can't exactly say no to a man in a waistcoat, right? With the early access release, Conan Exiles
No, you can't.
was a resounding success initially, impressively selling over 320,000 copies in the first week, and reportedly saving
Yeah, the fervor was huge.
from bankruptcy. And despite the mess at launch, it still holds a daily
It was a good
player
game.
rate of over
Yeah, it was alright.
126,000 people, and even
Yep.
racking up a
Better than WoW.
total of just shy of 13.3 million players. Having no prior knowledge to the game's mechanics or playstyle, I decided to bring in some company for backup in the form of my good friend and terrible game player, Wicked Wiz. Say hi, Wiz. What are you watching? Don't worry, I'll give you a minute, mate.
A few moments later.
Nice of you to join us, Wiz. Don't worry, we don't have to discuss the incident. Once we finally got into a party and into the same server, we were loaded into the character creation menu, which starts you off in the last place you want to be in any survival situation, strapped firmly to a crucifix. The character creation is really diverse and user-friendly, and I absolutely love a good morphing slider. With our characters finalized, the game's initial cutscene begins immediately with you still pinned unceremoniously to your crucifix. You can see vultures circling above you, waiting impatiently for your final breaths to leave your body, only to be saved by none other than the man himself, Conan. I loaded into the scene with a loud yelp from Wiz and found myself inside him. For God's sakes, get your minds out of the gutter, people. We spent the first few minutes familiarising ourselves with the controls and really enjoying the sand.
You're the one who was
Unlike
who went
some
there.
child murdering space wizard, I actually enjoy a good bit of sand. Speaking of immersive game physics though, this does unfortunately fall flat in certain areas. From the get-go, you're given survivor quests in the top right-hand corner to guide you through getting to grips with the basics of the game. This includes things like searching chests, keeping yourself fed and watered, and gathering crafting supplies to make some rudimentary clothes. Gaining XP is also incredibly easy in the lower levels. I found
Oh
myself
God, what
leveling
time
up
is
just
it?
from running through the dunes. Like most great RPGs, the level
Yeah.
system is built on allocating points into different stats depending on how you, the player, want to play the game.
Yeah, I haven't eaten dinner and stuff. Fuck. I forgot I have this doctor's appointment in the morning, guys. I believe I will play for 10 more minutes, but I'm going to stop here soon. I'm sorry.
Vitality and expertise. To say the map is big is a dramatic understatement. According to the Conan wiki, the size of the map is just about hitting the actual limit of 400k by 400k. After that, Unreal's physics starts misbehaving. For example, the easternmost islands, corpses have a bit of a bad habit of falling through the ground sometimes. After a fair bit of time exploring the environment and physically assaulting the local fauna, we came across our first in-game enemy. A man named Hodor the Humble, seen sitting around a fire with the apparent temperament of a particularly disgruntled host. Seriously, just going near him was enough to fill him with not so humble deadly rage. I avoided the initial attack thanks to having a leash.
This is bad. I could die here.
Unfortunately, none of the NPCs had bothered learning to do that. God help them when the ocean levels continue to rise. Initially, the combat comes across as quite uncoordinated and a bit wonky, but to be fair, I am trying to impale the man to death with a pickaxe, so I'm not going to judge it too harshly just yet. It wasn't long before we came across another group of NPCs, and with the confidence of my last kill filling every muscle, I charged headfirst, only to be swiftly cleaved absolutely in twain with an arrow to the waist. Combat is definitely going to take some practice, and maybe some actual, weapons at least. Without making a bedroll, which acts as a spawn point, we respawned back at the original start point of the game. Frustrating as fuck, but all is not lost, as your death point is displayed on the map. Upon finding your bodies and collecting your items, I was delighted to see that all of them returned to their place of origin. It's a small but really handy and highly appreciated feature. We'd been venturing for long enough, and after a brush with a
Rust won't do that.
we knew we needed to build a safe space to lay down our heads. I have to say, the building mechanic UI is awesome. And as a Rust player, this scores high in my books. While we're on the topic of Rust, we decided to go with a classic 1x1 with an airlock. There was one thing I found whilst browsing the menus that did not spark a great deal of joy, and according to many accounts on Reddit, did not spark a great deal of joy in many other players, and that, of course, was the introduction of a goddamn motherfucking battle pass. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know a single survival game with
a battle pass.
Given that there's already
Yeah, why would they do that?
Cosmetics using Crom Coin, which you can probably imagine the exchange rate from real money is dreadful. Why there needs to be a battle pass is completely beyond me. As time went on, we renovated and upgraded our house by adding a second floor and thought we were finally worthy to call ourselves a clan, aptly naming ourselves Only Clans. We made a good home for ourselves here, a solid foundation for any freshly developing warriors. But as the sun had set on our little homestead, so had Wicked Wiz's time on this server. He unfortunately had to leave me to venture forth on my own. For now, the burden of becoming a true barbarian was mine and only mine to bear. Also, he had to go and finish watching whatever it was he was before. Godspeed, Wiz. Take care, and remember to delete your browser history. I decided to start a fresh journey with a new face. Like a Time Lord who recently regenerated, but also not like that at all. Fast forwarding through everything you've seen before, I thought I'd take a true look at the tutorial system, which is broken up into sections called journeys. Specific tutorials that allow you to follow whichever path you wish. Everything from fighting to crafting has a singular journey for pretty much everything, which I found great for a new player experience. All too often are you dumped into a survival game with a long and tediously slow tutorial teaching you everything at once, or even better, one where there's no tutorial at all, and you're expected to learn through trial and error and the ethos of get good scrub. So it's really refreshing playing a game which lets you take everything at your own pace. I started out with the warrior journey so I could get a feel for the actual combat system, which still felt incredibly wonky. At times it felt like time slowed down mid-fight, and I'm not sure whether this was an intentional feature of the game at all. Slowly making my way through the journeys, I found myself really enjoying the game, soaking up the environment, the diverse scenery and the wildlife that filled it. There was so much around me that I only covered an incredibly tiny portion of the map. There is a heavy focus on exploration, which I did manage to find out whilst doing the blacksmith journey. While sometimes immersion can be great, it would have been even more great had they included a marker to a resource for the first time you needed it for a task, just so you know what the hell you're meant to be looking for. Honest to God, I spent over an hour looking
I'm gonna die.
purely because I didn't know where it was. Given the map's insanely large size, an initial resource indicator would be really helpful for first-time players. Even just pointing to the general area of said resource
Maybe not.
a bit more of a helpful push. And it was at this point I didn't
Fucking
play the
wolf.
game or record any content for over a month. Not because I got bored with the game, because I was really enjoying making this video. I stopped recording purely because Baldur's Gate 3 came out, and I got real bad Baldur's Gate brain rot. Seriously.
Why am I still in
for
combat?
a month.
I'm gonna
I
die.
eventually put on my big boy pants and told myself I wasn't going to play anymore until I got this video done. So after a long month, I loaded back into the world of Conan, only to find myself devoid of any clothes.
Nope,
weapons,
I'm
items.
tired and I'm making mistakes, and that's when you hearth. That is in hardcore. If you don't feel like you're playing 100%, get off the game. It's not your time. If you're having close calls, just bail out early. I'm not dying right now. I'm not gonna do that. I'll finish this video and then I'll go to bed.
Not recognize. In fact, after looking through the footage, I'm absolutely certain I have never been here before, and this isn't where I...
Nice guy, Cat. Thanks for everything. Thank you, number two. Thank you for hanging out. I see a lot of people in this channel right now. I want to say thank you guys. Like, you know, I'm not showing any favoritism here. Thank you, everybody. You know what I'm saying? Thank you. I appreciate seeing like people in here for like 8 solid hours. I really like that. It's a good promise for the future. I think it's a good thing. Thank you for being so loyal.
I left off a month ago. I checked out the map and couldn't find my house or any of my bedrolls, so I decided to take a long walk and try and find them. And that plan went really wrong because I shortly managed to succumb to frostbite because I wasn't where that one of the OG spawn points. I took off to go.
Oh my God! Isn't that like 50 blocks away?
House, only to be met with buildings
It is.
I've never seen before. Monoliths of players anew. I knew I'd left this world a month ago, and in turn, it had left me. Whilst doing my research, I did find a Reddit post saying that Funcom servers had a habit of deleting players' houses and even player accounts for absolutely no reason. So I think I may have fallen victim to this little issue. From a design point of view, Conan Exiles is a marvel. The landscapes, spanning from scorching deserts to snow-capped peaks, showcase a diverse terrain that not only serves as a backdrop, but plays a crucial role in the survival mechanics. Every biome challenges you differently, with its unique weather conditions, wildlife, and resources. Character design and animations are painstakingly detailed, reflecting the game's brutal nature. Enemies too vary in design, strategy, and challenge levels. The architecture, influenced by real-world ancient civilizations, is recreated with authenticity, adding depth and immersion. In short, Conan is a fun, well thought out and immersive.
Tomorrow is Season of Discovery, guys, so tune in. I keep forgetting what hour it is. It's like 1 or 2. Yeah, 1 p.m. So I'll be on here. I'll fire up the stream at like 12:50 or something like that, or maybe a little bit earlier than that. Probably earlier than that. I'm gonna play Rust right up until Season of Discovery starts. So I'll be on tomorrow in the morning, somewhere around I think like 11:30 or something like that for the Rust wipe until 1 p.m. And then Season of Discovery launches, and so if you guys want to see Season of Discovery, I'll be playing it.
Survival game. Yes, it has its bugs and jankiness, which I can see that if you're a long-time player can become irritating. But having said this, it's an extremely visually pleasing game that easily has to be one of my favorite new player experiences.
Yeah, I think with friends, this is a really fucking good game. Like if you had a friend who had never done a survival game before, this is a really great co-op game. You could find hundreds of hours of entertainment. I wish this game had been around when I was like 24, because I would have been lost in it.
Hold your hand, but guide you through like a wise mentor, teaching you how to survive in this unforgiving world. There is so much more to this game than what I've been able to show you here. And
yeah, there was an element of like, it kind of did teach you what it's like to get up in the desert, what you would need to do, where to find the correct substance, where to find the right sort of cloth.
the 12 expansive DLCs that follow.
It was, as a survival game, it actually really wasn't that bad in terms of its realism, because you really did have to find the right materials, and finding the right materials were where you would look. They weren't just scattered across the land. They were definitely like, if you wanted fast cloth safely, you would like go cut like plants under the water, basically.
Genuinely barely scratched the surface in this video. Maybe one day I'll come back to this and complete my journey. But now it's
like in a land full of gators and alligators and crazy, like weird magical beings and stuff, like everything's trying to kill you. It was a very good like teach you what you would do to survive thing.
my next
Each stage of it.
to play every survival.
More so than Rust. I don't think Rust really teaches you how to do anything at all. They just throw you in, which is fine. I got no issue with that.
No, I definitely did not find it.
But it would be, I think, better if Rust had like a tutorial that was like, you know, at least walked you through building your own base.
Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you want to,
Like a little blurb being like, now you should make a tool cupboard. Tool cupboards are 1,000 wood. You can place it anywhere in the base, but I suggest you put it in a corner of a tile, of a building tile, so that it only takes up the corner of the room, and then lock the tool cupboard afterwards. This is where your materials for upkeep go to keep the base from crumbling. And there never was a tutorial like that, so you have to find out the hard way. I think probably the first experience a player has in Rust is understanding that their base will crumble if they've never played a survival game, when they wake up in the morning and their base is crumbled because they didn't know what a tool cupboard was. They didn't know to put a tool cupboard down,
follow me on
and
my
Rust
journey,
doesn't tell you.
like and subscribe, follow my socials, and I'll see
Or
you.
fill the tool cupboard with wood and stone. The game doesn't tell you that, I don't think. So you'd have to go watch a video or just like straight trial and error. You know, Rust must have been a really good experience, like day one.
In the next worst survival game ever.
He did a positive review that he clickbaited the title. And it was odd. I died so many times to the zombies and wolves. Yeah. Like, the game is unforgiving. Like, okay, I quit Rust when I first played it. Quit it right away. I got to a science. I walked and I walked and I walked and I walked. And I was like, this game is unreasonably big. Like, really big. I just, like, walked and walked and walked and walked and walked. I was like, there's a lot of stuff to see and a lot of trees and a lot of animals and a lot of stuff to do. But the game is unreasonably fucking big. And I still sort of think that. It's perfect, actually. But it comes across when you're playing it like kind of that it's just too much. It's too much ground to cover. Because it kind of is. If you want to see the whole server, it's too much ground to cover. It's too big. So I wish it was a little bit more incestuous and a little bit smaller, and so does the community. They build all their private servers like that. So yeah, when you first start Rust, you just get eaten a lot. And so my problem with it is I managed to kill a scientist with just a rock by kiting. I mean, I was a good player the first day I played Rust, like in terms of gaming. So I used kiting and LOS and survival tactics, and I figured out how to make bandages, and I figured out you could pick marijuana plants and make bandages out of them. So I was bandaging and trying to kill a scientist because I was like, oh, I'll get a pistol from the scientist and use that to shoot zombies, because I thought it was a zombie game, but it wasn't. It was a kill players game. You actually have to mod it horribly to even get the zombies, and then after that, I killed the scientist, but I bled out from eating a full mag of revolver shots from a scientist, and I was like, oh, and I spawned like 26 blocks away from the body, and I had a full inventory of loot, and I was like, why would I ever walk this much? And I quit the game because I didn't know that there was a sleeping bag. And had I known that there was a sleeping bag, I would have continued playing Rust, and I never would have played a lot of other games. I would have just stayed on Rust, right? But then I kept thinking Rust might be my game somehow. I kept watching videos that really made me feel like Rust might be my game, and it was. And then I finally watched like a getting started in Rust video, and they were like, all right, first thing you do is you don't get bandages, you don't get a weapon, you don't do anything at all, just get off the beach and get 30 cloth from picking marijuana plants to make a sleeping bag. Place the sleeping bag inside of a bush somewhere inland, and then begin to decide where you want to build your first base. And with that advice, I unlocked Rust. But without even knowing that a sleeping bag, and I lost my first base that I built because I didn't know what a tool cupboard was. I don't know why I would know what a tool cupboard is. It's not a normal mechanic. It's a very Rust mechanic. It's like, tool cupboards are common in survival, I think, but like, how it's executed in Rust is very, very Rust. You would never do tool cupboards in the real world. So there's nothing that dictates in a survival situation to ever make a tool cupboard. There's nothing that would naturally lead you to do that. The first thing you're thinking is, oh, I need a box to store stuff, right? Not, oh, I need a tool cupboard to even make sure that the base doesn't crumble. So I lost my first base because I didn't know what a tool cupboard was. I don't remember that there was tool cupboards in the game even. I played it when it was in open beta, but I didn't really play it. My friend and I quit because somebody offlined us. And so now, like, I'm at this place where, like, I wonder sometimes if the noobs even know what a tool cupboard is or like a sleeping bag, so they quit the game. And that's why I think Rust needs like a minor tutorial, maybe 90 seconds long when you first log in. Where it's like, there's like 5 things that you need to know about this game. 1, your base will crumble if you don't pay upkeep. Upkeep requires a tool cupboard. If you don't know what a tool cupboard is, figure that out first before anything else, because it's the most basic mechanic in the game, and you must understand it. And that should be the first message that you get. The second one should be, if you want to respawn and not walk for 45 minutes, you need to put a sleeping bag down, which means picking cloth plants and making a sleeping bag. put the sleeping bag in your first base, chop some wood, make a blueprint and a hammer, and make a base, and that we can't teach you. Just understand the system, figure out the system, because you can't teach building. You have to inherently understand how to place walls yourself. You can't have somebody teach you that. You gotta understand the concept of putting down a foundation box and then putting theoretical walls up that you can solidify to a greater texture later. But I mean, you do skeletal structures with twig, and then you finish out by making them wood or stone. When you're done with your skeletal structure being built in twig, you always build entirely in twig first before you begin to solidify, and so that you can see the layout of the base before you solidify and not waste materials. Because once you've upgraded a tile, you've committed materials that you can't get back, so you can only destroy. So, and once you understand those 5 things, which is like a 90-second tutorial, Rust is a really fun, easy game to get into, and one of the best games that you'll ever play. But at no point do they tell you any of that. So most players lose their first entire inventory of loot and have no idea how to spawn by their body. Most players lose their first base because they have no idea what a tool cupboard is. Most players lose their first fight because they don't know how picky the fucking bloom is with the bow and that there's no cursor. And all this stuff. Most players don't know that you can make a spear from a tree, like right off the bat, without any other materials, so they just assume that the only weapon you can use is a rock and all this other stuff, and most players don't even know you can throw a spear. It won't know for some weeks until some other player throws a spear at them. And so that whole exploration element of Rust is perfect, that play and find out, but what it doesn't have is the basics. It has no education in the basics of Rust-centric things that wouldn't even apply to survival elements in real life, like putting down a tool cupboard. Tool cupboard would never be this element in real survival. It just wouldn't never come up. You would never build the tool cupboard until you were basically done surviving and you had the kind of time to waste making a tool cupboard, because a tool cupboard is not, fucking in any way or form intrinsic to basic wilderness survival at all, in any way or form. So I don't know why I would ever think to build a tool cupboard when you throw me in this starvation, gotta get water, gotta get wood for shelter situation, like Bear Grylls or Naked and Afraid, and like the first thing you want me to do really is chopping up trees to make a tool cupboard. That's not intrinsic to survival, and that they need to explain, but they don't. And so it causes most people, I think, to secretly quit the game the first time, because they're like, why would I walk 20 blocks after I full loot dropped all my loot? Why would I walk like 45 minutes to my body and die to a bunch of other stuff that I don't even know what it is yet, and just to waste my time? And I think they asked for the refund before the 2 hours is up, because they don't know what a tool cupboard is or a sleeping bag. They don't know what those things do. Maybe if they played like the other games before, they might, but other survival games before, they might. But really, it takes a tutorial video to successfully play Rust. If you were to trial and error it, you're going to get so frustrated you're going to quit the game. And that's impossible to describe to new players. The best I ever can do with it is watch my videos or watch someone else's video, because you can't just jump into Rust without horrible, catastrophic RNG failure of things that you don't even know exist yet. And on that note, catch me on Rust tomorrow, guys, at like 11:30 in the morning or so. Gonna close out on that wonderful Rust bit. And give you a reminder that you are watching skycat.live, and I am across Twitch and YouTube these days, and I have filmed an 11-hour and 7-minute session today that all of you people were part of, and I want to say thank you for being part of that. Thank you for interacting with the stream and making a wonderful stream really a lot better. And I really like the interaction. Thank you. So, and this 11-hour and 10-minute video will be going onto my YouTube right after I close this video, and it will be done streaming into HD sometime around 11 a.m. in the morning when I get back on again. If you wish to see this session again, you are very welcome to. I love the repeat business, and you can even see your own engagements in it if you want. And that is true of all my work these days for the last last like 2 months, and all my future work will be on YouTube, every minute of it. So if there's something I said that you didn't like, or something that I said that you did like, you can find it there. You can quote me or make chop and skew videos of me making racist comments. You can do all the nastiness and troll me if you want, or you can love me. It doesn't really matter. It's all content there for your disposal. It's there for you to have. Thank you so much for your time, guys. Catch me on YouTube. Sub to me on Twitch. I love you guys. Please like and sub. Yeah, have a wonderful evening. I love you.